Should we buy or sell Matterport? First off, read this disclaimer carefully. And do your good deed of the day by liking and subscribing. So, we do have a theme here that I call computer vision. 24% from the 52-week low, but an astonishing minus 46% away from the 52-week highs. So a ferocious, no prisoner bear market. I categorize Matterport as 3D modeling. 44% here from the low, minus 78% pullback. That is ferocious. Here is their website. So they have basically all kinds of very interesting ways to turn our physical objects, rooms into these digital representations. So yeah, I do categorize this as sort of like, it's a type of computer vision. It's the closest theme I sort of found for it. Anyway, it's a very interesting company. When we look here at the charts, and we go here into the weekly data points, so this stock, it's seen huge rallies. So from May of 2021 leading up here to late November 2021, this stock saw a 228% gain. So investors over a long period, they talked, they analyzed, yada yada yada, and they were very bullish. Then all of a sudden, as someone just flipped a switch, we got pure just depression, hate. They hated Matterport between late 2021 and mid-February of this year. So it's just baffling really how the market completely changes its interpretation of stocks and sectors and the like. It's quite ridiculous. But yeah, it just goes to show you the market is very emotional. Similar to how I think this rally maybe was a bit irrationally optimistic, maybe this bear market was absurdly pessimistic. And when we go into the daily data points, then we do have something that looks a lot, to me, like a rounding bottom. It looks very nice, indeed. And we also have something that looks, is a breakout above a resistance level. So the green 50-day moving average, it's been resistance for a long time, and we are now flipping the script and using it as a support level. So that's interesting. That's a fundamental change in the trend. So you have rounding bottom, which is a more longer term change, and also resistance level turning into support. That's interesting. Looking at these other indicators here, we are coming from a very oversold level. MACD longer term could flash, a buy signal, but that's still, a bit into the future. Looking at the daily data points, we've seen very substantial improvement here in MACD. It's getting above the 0 line. Accumulation distribution is corroborating the rounding bottom. That's bullish. RSI, it's been breaking out a bit here. So we are not like in danger territory. So overall, this looks interesting from a technical perspective. So I think a key thing here is that the 50 DMA support. Beyond that, on the longer term radar, we have a rounding bottom. In this case, I think the focus here is on the daily data points. So these are significant improvements. In terms of the technicals here, I think I will give them. I give them a 5. Feeling a bit generous, but I do think that there's a very significant improvement here, and I also like the way the low is formed. A low formed through a rounding bottom. I have way better experiences with them because the nice thing about the rounding bottom is that it takes time for it to develop. So you have the bears and the bulls back and forth, back and forth. So the price that they sort of agree on is more stable than when you have, as an example, a V-shaped bottom, which can be more erratic longer term. Given that Matterport very recently went public, we don't get any data here from the seasonality forecaster, and the data we do get here from stock charts, I mean, we have very little data. The data we do have is 50-50-ish for April, but we usually have a loss in April. May and June are very strong. But the thing is that we simply just do not have enough data when it comes to seasonality to really jump to conclusions. The data we do have is bullish, but because it's so little, I can only give a 1 point here to the bulls. Next off is fundamentals. So Sachs has a number to buy, F value, F growth, C momentum. Industry rank, bottom 32%. Technology services. Market cap is 2.3 billion US dollars, and there is no dividend. So when we go here to the insiders, what are they doing? We have buy, sell, buy, sell, buy. So most of the transactions have been accumulation, buying. That is interesting. It just looks good to see that there's just a bunch of buys. Of course, looking at the transaction value is, of course, very important as well. Let's now go to the price targets. So here are the consensus estimates. We have 6 analysts covering the stock, and there's an average 66% price target above, the current price. Highest is 203% above, and the worst price target is 9% above. So the fundamental data we do have is a bit mixed, but overall it's a very much bullish sentiment. So I do think I will give the bulls a 4 here. I think overall this looks good. Next we will go to relative performance. We don't have much data when it comes to weekly data points, so we jump right into the dailies. Then we do get a 58% correlation with the S&P 500, 77% with ARK-K, the Cathie Woods Innovation ETF, 61% with the Technology ETF XLK, and then minus 71% with the 10-year yield. We do, however, see that the correlation with the 10-year yield has differed significantly. During this rise here, we saw here that the 10-year yield relationship got increasingly positive. Well, it improved, got stronger, then flipped towards positive. During this downtrend here, you saw that the correlation continued to become positive. So because a lot of people, they make a big deal about the relationship between the 10-year yield and these high-tech stocks, but it's very clear here in terms of looking here literally at the actual correlation. The relationship is way more complicated. Anyway, the ETF that will have the biggest effect on Matterport is going to be ARK-K. So let's do a quick technical analysis of Cathie Woods ETF. So here we do see that it lost all kinds of support levels. The 100-week could have worked, failed. 200-week could have worked, failed. It seems like the closest thing we got to a bottom here is something that looks a bit double bottom-ish, which is, nice to see. And there's been a bit of a rally recently. We also come from these very, very oversold levels. MACD is flirting. Yeah, we do have a bullish crossover here on the MACD. That's interesting. Looking at the daily data points. So the bulls have taken back that purple 20-day moving average, and they are now working on reclaiming the 50-day moving average here in green and flipping it from being a resistance level where the bears keep shorting to becoming a buy level where the bulls are buying. So there is some interesting activity here from the bulls. So yeah, nice to see. Here is the relationship between Matterport and RK. We have seen Matterport outperform a bit, so that's interesting. When we go here to the daily data points, we do have a bit of a rounding-ish bottoming formation here, which means that Matterport has more systematically started to outperform the Cathie Woods Innovation ETF. Yeah, we don't get any seasonality data here, but that is to be expected. Let's, while we are at it, look at the relationship between RK and the S&P 500. We do see that the RK, it has rallied significantly, and one could certainly make the case that there is some potential horizontal resistance levels. So here, and yeah, also here as well. So horizontal resistance is right here and right now. But of course, breaking through horizontal resistance is bullish, so it can also flip in that right direction. To sort of gauge the odds of this is to look a bit at seasonality. So the seasonality over the last 5 years here in green shows us that RK tends to strongly outperform the S&P 500 heading towards later July. So that increases the probability that we will see a breakout above the overhead resistance level. So in terms of relative performance here, we have something a bit rounding bottomish vis-a-vis the RK. The RK has a tendency to outperform the S&P 500 going forward. So this also is in the bullish camp. Yeah, I think I will give, the bulls still have a lot to prove, so I think I will give them a 3. But overall, we do get a score of 3.3 here for Matterport. So the data is definitively more favorable of bullish trades than bearish. A key line in the sand is the 50 daily moving average support. Given all the data we have looked at, we definitively expect the bulls to use this opportunity to protect that level. If the bulls were to start to freak out and allow the bears to reclaim the 50 daily moving average, it doesn't mean that it's a disaster for Matterport. It does, however, mean that, as a matter of fact, there were not enough bulls at the 50 daily moving average. There's supposed to be buyers at support during an uptrend. That is the very definition of an uptrend. You are supposed to have systematically more buyers than sellers. So any kind of flip in the opposite direction, it's not what we want to see. So yeah, definitively very interesting company. I think that long term, what Matterport is doing is definitively the future. The issue for a lot of these companies is that while they are doing something very innovative, it can be a bit difficult to actually sort of protect the patents around these kinds of technologies. Because it's there's all these complexities, you have the hardware side, you have the software side, and the more complex a product is, the more difficult it actually is to protect the patents. But if you have like a very simple product, then sort of like the patent is very much set in stone. You know, if any kind of competitor comes on the scene and they have something very similar, then you could very easily prove in court that they have just taken your idea. Um, if you want to see how complicated, these high-tech patent wars are, just look at, the conflicts between, Apple and Samsung and other companies. It's very messy, very messy. There's so many variables, patents all over the place. The best way for these kinds of companies to sort of protect their turf is through marketing, to just dominate through branding. And when it comes to branding, I do think that Matterport, the name is a bit odd. It doesn't really make, when I hear Matterport, I focus actually on port. So I think that it's some kind of, maybe it's some kind of shipping company. So here are, this is what you get when you Google port. A place where ships may ride secure from storms. A harbor town or city where ships may take on or discharge cargo. Port of entry. So if there's something I would certainly suggest that Matterport do, is to seriously consider whether there's a need for some rebranding. Just some way to clearly communicate what they do. Anyway, whatever you do, of course, you want to use stops and be nimble.